Hey there, welcome back to JC4JC. I'm Jay, and today I'm going to be talking about those moments in between change, moments in between transformation, when you know that change is happening, but it's not really reflecting in your life yet. And we call those wilderness moments, where everything feels uncertain, slow, frustrating, and it could even be lonely at times. You feel stuck, nothing's changing, you're just waiting. Now, the Bible offers us two stories. One of them lasted 40 years, and one of them lasted 40 days. So let's check out the differences between the two and how we can find some hope in our wilderness season. All right, most people think of the wilderness as kind of like a waiting room, a place where nothing seems to change. But scripture tells a very different story. After Exodus, the people of Israel wandered in the desert for 40 years. 40 years. I couldn't even imagine that. And then centuries later, Jesus entered the wilderness for 40 days before beginning his ministry. 40 years versus 40 days. The wilderness appears in both stories, but what happens inside those sermons could not be more different. And the difference comes down to something surprisingly simple. So here we are in the book of Exodus, and the Israelites had just been freed from Pharaoh, and they leave Egypt and they find themselves in the desert. So when they entered the wilderness, the challenges of the desert quickly exposed what was in their hearts. They complained about food. They doubted whether God would provide. They questioned whether God was even with them. I mean, I would probably do that as well. I mean, we're just wandering around with no plan. So again and again, they longed to return to Egypt, the place that they had been rescued from. Their 40 years in the wilderness reveals something deeply human. When life becomes uncertain, it's easy to question God's direction, and we long for the familiar. We long for the comfort, even if we were under oppression. So, before Jesus began his ministry, he was led into the wilderness for 40 days. Like Israel before him, he struggled with hunger, with isolation, with temptation, but something different was happening in this wilderness story. Where Israel struggled in the desert, Jesus responded with trust in the Father. And the three temptations that followed would reveal exactly what that trust looks like. So to me, this is one of the most powerful parts of the story. In the wilderness, Jesus isn't just resisting temptation. He's giving us a blueprint for how we're to respond when we find ourselves in our own wilderness season. And it starts with the first temptation. And it harkens back to Israel. Israel was complaining about food and doubted whether God was even going to provide for them. When Jesus was in this same situation, he was tempted to turn the stones into bread. But what he did is he answered with scripture. He said, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." The second one, when Israel was testing God in the wilderness, they were demanding proof that he was truly with them. When Jesus was tempted to throw himself from the temple to force God to rescue him, to force God to show up, he responded again with scripture. You shall not put the Lord your God to the test. Finally, the third example, Israel later turned to idolatry. They were worshiping the golden calf as Moses is walking down with the 10 Commandments. I mean, what a juxtaposition. So they just completely lost patience with God's timing. When Jesus was offered all the kingdoms in the world, as if he would bow down and worship the enemy. And he answered again with scripture, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. The wilderness was the same. The tests were the same. The difference was trustful obedience to the Father. That's the kind of faith that is forged while you're in the wilderness. Now, these wilderness moments, they're not fun. They're times that life feels uncertain and quiet and flat. And it's easy to see why these moments feel like delays, like we're just sitting in a waiting room waiting for something to happen, looking at your watch. But the patterns of Scripture suggest something different. Again and again, the wilderness becomes the place where God prepares, protects, and forms his people before the next chapter begins. So if you find yourself in the wilderness, don't lose heart. Celebrate it, because the wilderness isn't where God abandons you. It's where he's preparing the new you. Gonna wrap up this video, and I want to thank you for watching, and I hope this gave you some hope and inspiration. If you are in your wilderness season, it doesn't last forever. You will come to an end. I just recently came out of my wilderness season, and the future just looks so bright. So again, thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time on JC4JC. Have a good one.